The rejection. When Titans underestimated Earth. The massive space station Nexus Prime hung in the void like a jewel made of metal and light. Its spinning rings created artificial gravity for the thousands of beings who called it home. Ships from across the galaxy docked at its ports, bringing together races that had never spoken to each other before the Stellar Dominion was formed. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood at the viewing port of the Earth transport ship New Horizon, watching the station grow larger as they approached. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple bun, and she wore the formal blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. The gold emblems on her shoulders caught the light from distant stars. Behind her, the rest of Earth's first diplomatic mission prepared for what could be the most important meeting in human history. They had traveled for 8 months through hyperspace to reach this place, using technology that Earth had only recently discovered in the ruins of an ancient civilization. Ambassador, we're receiving docking instructions, called Lieutenant Commander James Park from the pilot's seat. His young face showed the excitement and nervousness they all felt. This was humanity's first real contact with the galaxy beyond their small corner of space. Elena nodded and turned to address her team. Dr. Michael Thompson, Earth's leading xenobiologist, checked his translation device one final time. Commander Lisa Hayes, their military advisor, stood at attention despite the zero gravity. Chief Engineer Robert Kim reviewed the technical specifications they planned to present. Remember, Elena said, her voice calm and steady, we're not here to beg for membership. We're here to show them what humanity can offer the galaxy. Earth may be young, but we have something special that makes us worth knowing. The docking process took several hours. Nexus Prime was larger than any structure humans had ever built. Its central hub alone was the size of a small moon, with rotating sections that provided different gravity levels for different species. Energy shields flickered around its outer edges, and massive weapon arrays showed that the Stellar Dominion took security seriously. When they finally stepped off their ship, Elena and her team found themselves in a docking bay that stretched beyond sight. Creatures they had only dreamed of walked past them without a second glance. Some floated through the air without wings or propulsion systems. Others moved on more legs than seemed physically possible. A few appeared to be made of living crystal that chimed softly as they walked. "Welcome to Nexus Prime," said a voice behind them. They turned to see their guide, a member of the Krellic species. The insectoid creature stood nearly 8 feet tall on 6 legs, with 4 arms that ended in delicate manipulator hands. Its compound eyes reflected the station's lights like prisms. "I am Coordinator Zixtil." The Krellics continued, its voice translated by small devices they all wore. "The Stellar Dominion Council will see you in 1 standard hour. I will escort you to the diplomatic quarters." The walk through the station was a journey through wonders Elena had never imagined. They passed through a district where the Thaxian crystal beings grew their children in singing gardens. The air itself seemed to vibrate with music that made their bones feel warm. They walked through a marketplace where vendors sold items that defied the laws of physics as humans understood them. "How long has the Stellar Dominion existed?" Elena asked Zixtil as they walked. "By your measurement of time, approximately 15,000 years, the Krellics replied. "The Dominion was formed when the first interstellar civilizations agreed to work together instead of fighting. Peace has brought prosperity to over 3 million worlds." Elena felt a flutter of doubt in her stomach. 15,000 years of civilization, while humans had only just begun to reach beyond their solar system. How could Earth possibly offer anything to beings who had been traveling the stars since before human agriculture began? The diplomatic quarters were surprisingly comfortable, with furniture that somehow adjusted itself to fit human proportions. They had 30 minutes to prepare before the council meeting. Elena used the time to review her presentation one final time, while her team made final checks on their equipment. "Ambassador," Dr. Thompson said quietly, "I've been analyzing the atmospheric readings from different sections of the station. These beings have mastered technologies we can barely understand. Some of them don't even breathe oxygen. What if they're right to dismiss us as primitives?" Elena looked at her friend and colleague, seeing her own doubts reflected in his eyes. "Michael, do you remember what you told me when we first discovered the ruins on Titan? You said that intelligence wasn't about having the most advanced tools. It was about solving problems in ways no one else had thought of." Before he could answer, Coordinator Zixtil returned to escort them to the council chambers. The room was vast, with a domed ceiling that showed the stars beyond the station. 3 tiers of seats rose around a central platform, and Elena counted representatives from at least 20 different species. At the highest tier sat the 3 members of the Dominion's ruling council. Archon Vextar of the Vorthans dominated the center seat. His species had evolved beyond physical form, existing as pure energy that maintained a roughly humanoid shape. Blue light crackled around him as he moved, and his voice resonated with power when he spoke. To his left sat Matriarch Ylthanis of the Thaxians, her crystalline body refracting the chamber's light into rainbow patterns. Her species communicated through harmonic vibrations that somehow translated into words the other races could understand. The third council member was General Corvex of the Brutari, a species that looked like walking tanks made of living metal. His species had joined the Dominion through conquest, but had proven valuable allies over the centuries. "Humans of Earth," Archon Vextar began, his voice echoing through the chamber. "You have requested membership in the Stellar Dominion. State your case." Elena stepped forward onto the central platform, feeling the weight of thousands of alien eyes upon her. The translation devices hummed softly as she began to speak. "Honored council members, we come from a young world, but one that has learned valuable lessons. Earth has faced challenges that nearly destroyed us many times. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, wars, and plagues. Each time, we survived because we learned to work together and find new solutions to impossible problems." She gestured to Dr. Thompson, who activated their holographic display. Images of Earth appeared in the air above them, showing green continents and blue oceans, cities that reached toward the sky, and ships beginning to explore the solar system. "We may not have the most advanced technology," Elena continued, "but we have something else. We have the ability to adapt, to learn, and to never give up. In just the past century, we've gone from simple machines to space travel. We've learned to heal diseases that once killed millions. We've begun to repair damage to our own planet's environment." Several council members made sounds that might have been laughter. One of the Krelix delegates clicked his mandibles in what Elena had learned was a sign of dismissal. Archon Vextar leaned forward, the energy that formed his body flaring brighter. "Young human, your species has indeed made progress, but you speak of accomplishments that most Dominion species achieved tens of thousands of years ago. What can you offer a civilization that has mastered the fundamental forces of the universe?" Elena felt the weight of the question, but she had prepared for this moment. "We offer fresh perspectives, Archon. We offer the ability to see problems from angles that established civilizations might miss. We offer hands willing to work and minds willing to learn." "Soft flesh primitives," General Corvex rumbled, his metallic voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "Your species has not even mastered your own planet's resources. You still fight among yourselves over territory and beliefs. What use would you be in the face of real threats?" Dr. Thompson stepped forward, his nervousness overcome by professional passion. "General, if I may, our conflicts have taught us valuable lessons about cooperation under pressure. When faced with extinction-level events, humans have consistently found ways to put aside differences and work toward common goals." "Pretty words," Matriarch Ylthanis sang, her crystalline voice creating harmonies that made the air itself seem to shimmer. "But words are wind. The Dominion requires proof of capability." Elena exchanged glances with her team. This was the moment they had hoped to avoid, but had prepared for nonetheless. What kind of proof would satisfy the council? Archon Vextar's energy form pulsed with what might have been amusement. "The Dominion has many challenges that our established members find uninteresting. Mining operations in dangerous sectors, exploration of unstable regions, diplomatic missions to primitive worlds that require delicate handling. Grunt work, Commander Hayes said quietly, her military training making her read between the lines. Precisely, General Korvax confirmed. If your species can prove itself capable of handling the tasks that others find beneath them, perhaps we might consider formal membership. You would have 5 standard years to demonstrate your worth. Elena felt her heart sink. 5 years of being treated as servants, doing the jobs too dangerous or boring for the established members. But she also saw the opportunity hidden in the challenge. We accept, she said, surprising even her own team. But we have one condition. We want to establish a human settlement on the edge of Dominion space, where we can operate independently while taking on these assignments. The council members exchanged looks that somehow transcended the barriers between species. Elena could sense their surprise at her boldness. You would establish a colony in the Rim territories. Matriarch Yil Thanis asked, her psalm taking on notes of curiosity. That region is largely unexplored. The risks are significant. The risks are acceptable, Elena replied. Humans have always been explorers. Give us our chance to prove ourselves, and we'll show you what Earth can contribute to the galaxy. After a long moment of discussion in languages the translation devices couldn't parse, HFY spoke again. Very well. You may establish your settlement in the Kepler 442 system. It is distant enough that your inevitable failures will not embarrass the Dominion, but close enough that we can monitor your progress. As Elena and her team left the council chambers, they carried with them the weight of their species' future. They had gained their chance, but at a price that would test every limit of human endurance and ingenuity. 2 months later, the first human colonists arrived at Kepler 442 bits. The planet was harsh but livable, with vast mineral deposits and challenging weather patterns. Captain Marcus Steele, a veteran of Earth's space program, was chosen to lead the colony's defense forces. His weathered face and steady hands had seen him through countless dangerous missions. Chief Engineer Dr. Sarah Chen arrived with the second wave of colonists, bringing with her the most advanced technology Earth could spare. Her brilliant mind had already begun working on ways to adapt their equipment to local conditions. So this is our new home, Captain Steele said as he looked out over the rocky landscape of their landing site. The red sun cast everything in strange shadows, and the thin atmosphere made every breath a conscious effort. For now, Dr. Chen replied, her scanner already analyzing soil samples, but give me 6 months, and I'll have this place running like a dream. Neither of them knew that their real test was still coming. Deep in the void between galaxies, ancient machines were beginning to stir. The Stellar Dominion's greatest challenge in 15,000 years was approaching, and Earth's children would be the ones to meet it first. The colony grew quickly as more humans arrived. They built with determination and efficiency that surprised even themselves. Every challenge became an opportunity to innovate. When the local storms threatened their power systems, they learned to harness the electrical energy. When the mineral deposits proved harder to extract than expected, they developed new techniques that tripled their output. Within a year, the human settlement had become the most productive mining operation in the Rim territories. But more importantly, they had built something that the Stellar Dominion had never seen before, a community that thrived on cooperation and shared purpose. The reports from the human colony are quite remarkable. Coordinator Zick noted during a routine briefing to the council. Their efficiency ratings exceed our best estimates by significant margins. HFY's energy form flickered with what might have been interest. Remarkable for primitives, you mean? Remarkable by any standard, the Krellex replied. They have solved several engineering problems that our specialists considered intractable. Their social cohesion remains strong despite the harsh conditions. But even as the Council began to take notice of humanity's achievements, sensors throughout the galaxy were detecting something that would change everything. In the dark spaces between stars, vast shapes moved with purpose that had been absent for millennia. The ancient enemy was returning, and this time, the Stellar Dominion's advanced technology might not be enough to save them. They would need something else entirely. The stubborn, creative, never-give-up spirit that had carried humanity from the caves of Earth to the stars themselves. The Awakening. When ancient enemies return. The emergency sirens on Nexus Prime had been silent for over 8,000 years. When they began their piercing wail, beams throughout the massive station stopped what they were doing and looked toward the central command spire with growing dread. In the deepest levels of the station, where the most sensitive long-range sensors were housed, Technician Mordun of the Krellic species stared at readings that made his compound eyes reflect the warning lights in fractured patterns. His forehands moved rapidly over crystalline control surfaces as he tried to confirm what the sensors were telling him. Impossible. He clicked in his native language, then switched to Galactic Standard. Computer, run full diagnostic on Deep Space Sensor Array 77 Alpha. Diagnostic complete. The station's artificial intelligence responded in a voice that managed to sound concerned despite its mechanical nature. All systems operating within normal parameters. Sensor readings confirmed. Mordun's mandibles chattered nervously as he initiated a priority communication to the council chambers. Within minutes, the three archons of the Stellar Dominion materialized around his workstation through holographic projection. Archon Vextar's energy form crackled with agitation. Report, Technician. What has triggered the emergency protocols? Long-range scanners have detected massive energy signatures approaching from the galactic void. Mordun replied, his translator struggling with the rapid clicks and buzzes of his excited speech. The signatures match historical records from the archives of the last war. General Korvex's metallic form seemed to grow darker, as if light itself was being absorbed by his despair. Show us. The holographic display activated, showing a three-dimensional map of local galactic space. At the very edge of the projection, red markers indicated incoming objects. Even at this scale, there were dozens of them, each one massive beyond easy comprehension. Void Harbingers, Matriarch Yil Thenis sang, her crystalline voice creating harmonics of fear that made the air itself vibrate with dread. The machine devourers wake once more. For the younger species in the Dominion, the Void Harbingers were legends from the distant past, ancient machines created by a civilization that had vanished long before most current species had achieved interstellar travel. The machines had one purpose: to consume entire star systems, converting matter and energy into more of themselves. The last time they had awakened, it had taken the combined might of 30 different civilizations to drive them back into the void. Even then, victory had only been achieved by sacrificing entire fleets and abandoning dozens of star systems to their hunger. How long until they reached the outer territories? General Korvex asked. Mordun's calculations appeared in glowing numbers beside the tactical display. At their current rate of approach, approximately 14 standard months until they reached the first inhabited systems. The human colony, Archon Vextar observed. They will be directly in the path of the main formation. In the Kepler 442 system, Captain Marcus Steele was reviewing the morning reports when the emergency transmission from Nexus Prime arrived. The holographic message showed Coordinator Zixstill's usually calm demeanor replaced by barely controlled panic. Captain Steele, you must begin immediate evacuation of all human personnel. Ancient enemy forces are approaching your position. The Stellar Dominion fleet will provide escort vessels within 6 months to assist in your withdrawal. The message ended, leaving Marcus and his senior staff staring at the empty air where the hologram had been. Chief Engineer Dr. Sarah Chen was the first to break the silence. 6 months, she said quietly. They're giving us 6 months to abandon everything we've built here. Marcus activated the colony's internal communication system. All senior staff to the command center. Priority Alpha. Within minutes, the small conference room was filled with the dozen humans who had become the leadership of their frontier community. Mining Supervisor Tom Bradley, a man whose hands were permanently stained with the red dust of Kepler 442 bits. Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the colony's chief medical officer, whose small hospital had saved more lives than anyone had expected in their first year. Communications specialist Maria Santos, whose modifications to their long-range transmitters had given them clearer contact with Earth than the Dominion's own systems provided. "I've received word from the Dominion," Marcus began, then played Zixtil's message for the assembled group. The room erupted in voices as everyone tried to speak at once. Tom Bradley's voice cut through the noise. "Abandon the colony. After everything we've accomplished here. What exactly are these Void Harbingers?" Dr. Walsh asked. Dr. Chen had already pulled up every database entry their systems could access. According to the historical records, they're self-replicating machines from a dead civilization. They consume entire solar systems to create more of themselves. The last time they were active, it took 30 species working together to stop them. "And now they want us to just run away," Maria Santos said, her anger evident. "Leave them to destroy everything we've built." Marcus stood up, his weathered face showing the conflict he felt. "The Dominion knows more about these threats than we do. If they say we need to evacuate. The Dominion also said we were too primitive to contribute anything meaningful to galactic civilization." Dr. Chen interrupted. "Maybe it's time we showed them what humans do when running away isn't an option." The debate continued for hours, but gradually a consensus emerged. They would not abandon their colony. Instead, they would prepare to defend it using every advantage their human ingenuity could provide. "This is insane," Tom Bradley said, but he was already making notes about how to fortify the mining operations. "We're talking about fighting machines that destroyed civilizations far more advanced than ours. We're talking about defending our home," Marcus replied. "Something humans have been doing successfully for thousands of years." The next few months transformed the human colony from a mining settlement into something the galaxy had never seen. A fortress built not just with advanced technology, but with the stubborn determination that had carried humanity from Earth to the stars. Dr. Chen's engineering teams worked around the clock to modify their equipment. Mining lasers became defensive weapons. Industrial fabricators began producing armor plating and defensive systems. The geothermal power plants that had been built to run the mining operations were upgraded to provide energy for weapons that existed only in theoretical textbooks. "Sarah, this is brilliant," Marcus said as he reviewed the latest modifications. "But will it actually work against the Harbingers?" Dr. Chen looked up from the power coupling she was installing, her face smudged with grease and her eyes bright with the fever of creation. "Marcus, I honestly don't know. But I know this. The Dominion's approach is to fight these things the same way they fought them last time. Advanced energy weapons, massive fleet engagements, overwhelming technological superiority." She gestured toward the modified mining equipment around them. "We're not going to try to out-tech them. We're going to be unpredictable. We're going to use tactics they won't expect from weapons they won't recognize." The human colony's communications with Nexus Prime became increasingly strained as their intentions became clear. Coordinator Zixtil's messages grew more desperate as the weeks passed. "Captain Steele, you must understand. The Void Harbingers have adaptive capabilities. Every weapon used against them is analyzed and countered. The Dominion's battle doctrine is based on 15,000 years of experience." Marcus's reply was broadcast not just to Nexus Prime, but to every human settlement within communication range. "Coordinator, with respect, your 15,000 years of experience includes losing to these machines multiple times. Maybe it's time to try something different." The first Void Harbinger scout ship entered the Kepler 442 system on a Tuesday morning, local time. It was smaller than the main battle units, only about the size of a terrestrial city, but its dark hull seemed to absorb light itself. Dr. Chen watched from the colony's main observation deck as the alien machine moved through space with fluid grace. "It's beautiful," she said quietly, "and absolutely terrifying." The scout ship began scanning the system with energy beams that made the human sensors scream with overloaded readings. It cataloged every planet, every asteroid, every particle of space dust. When its scans reached the human colony, the machine paused. "I think we've got its attention," Marcus said. The Harbinger Scout launched a probe toward Kepler 442 bits. The small device descended through the atmosphere and landed near the colony's perimeter. It was a perfect sphere about the size of a basketball, made of the same light-absorbing material as its parent ship. For several hours, the probe simply sat there, scanning everything within range. Then it began to move, rolling across the ground toward the colony's main buildings. "Should we destroy it?" Tom Bradley asked over the communication system. "Not yet," Dr. Chen replied. "Let it look. I want to see what it's interested in." The probe examined their mining equipment, their power systems, their defensive modifications. It spent a particularly long time analyzing the jury-rigged weapon systems that Dr. Chen's teams had built from industrial equipment. Then it did something that surprised everyone. It projected a holographic message in perfect galactic standard. Query: purpose of defensive preparations. Analysis indicates insufficient capability to resist harvesting operations. Explanation requested. Dr. Chen stepped forward, knowing that her words were probably being transmitted back to the scout ship and from there to the main Harbinger fleet. "We are defending our home. We will resist your harvesting operations with every resource at our disposal." Statement: resistance is futile. Previous encounters with biological entities demonstrate inevitable harvest success. Recommendation: submit to efficient processing. Counterstatement: Marcus said, moving to stand beside Dr. Chen. "Previous encounters were with species that fought you the same way every time. We are different." The probe was silent for several minutes, then projected another message. Clarification requested. Define different. Dr. Chen smiled, and for the first time since the crisis began, her expression showed confidence instead of fear. "We learn. We adapt. We improvise. And we never, ever give up." The probe retracted its scanning equipment and rolled back toward its landing site. Within hours, it had launched itself back into space and rejoined the scout ship. 3 days later, the main Void Harbinger fleet arrived in the Kepler 442 system. The machines came in formation that defied easy description. Each ship was unique, having grown and adapted based on what it had consumed. Some were sleek and predatory, shaped like vast metal sharks. Others were geometric nightmares of angles and surfaces that hurt to look at directly. The largest Harbinger, clearly the fleet command unit, was the size of a small moon. Its hull was covered with structures that might have been weapons, sensors, or manufacturing facilities, possibly all three. Fleet composition: 12 primary units, 43 secondary units, over 200 tertiary attack craft. Maria Santos reported from the communications center. Total estimated mass: approximately 40% of our entire asteroid belt. The Harbinger fleet took up positions throughout the system, surrounding Kepler 442 bits, but not immediately attacking. Instead, the command unit transmitted a message that reached not just the human colony, but every receiver within several light years. Biological entities of Kepler 442 bits, you have demonstrated atypical behavior patterns. Standard harvesting protocols will be modified to study your adaptive capabilities before processing begins. Resistance will provide valuable data. In the depths of space, the human colony's modifications finally revealed their true purpose. Dr. Chen had not just built defensive weapons. She had built them to look like conventional Dominion technology, while actually operating on completely different principles. The mining lasers that appeared to be standard plasma weapons were actually focused gravity manipulators, designed to create localized space-time distortions. The power systems that looked like fusion reactors were actually tapping directly into the planet's magnetic field in ways that Dominion science said were impossible. "Sarah," Marcus asked quietly as they watched the Harbinger fleet maneuver, "are you sure this will work?" Dr. Chen's smile was fierce. "Marcus, I have no idea if this will work. But I know that those machines out there are expecting us to fight like every other species they've encountered. They're about to learn that humans don't fight fair." The Battle of Kepler 442 began at dawn on the colony's fifth day under siege. The Harbingers attacked with overwhelming force, sending wave after wave of adaptive fighters against the human defensive positions. But instead of the expected plasma bombardment and kinetic strikes, the human weapons did things that violated every known principle of space combat. Gravity wells opened in the vacuum, crushing Harbinger fighters into impossibly dense points of matter. Electromagnetic pulses that should have been impossible to generate in space disrupted the machine's adaptive systems. Mining charges redesigned as proximity weapons created explosions that behaved more like living things than conventional detonations. For the first time in their existence, the Void Harbingers encountered tactics they could not immediately analyze and counter. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it ended, the Harbinger fleet had lost 30% of its secondary units and over half of its attack craft. The human colony had lost 3 defensive positions and had nearly exhausted their power reserves. But they had done the impossible. They had hurt the machines that had consumed civilizations. The Harbinger command unit transmitted one final message before the fleet withdrew to regroup. Analysis incomplete. New variables detected. Reassessment required. As the ancient machines retreated to the edge of the system, a new message arrived from Nexus Prime. This time, it was not Coordinator Zixtil, but Archon Vextar himself. Captain Steele, Dr. Chen, and all human personnel of Kepler 442 bits. The Stellar Dominion Council formally requests your assistance in the defense of galactic civilization. It appears we have significantly underestimated both the threat we face and the capabilities you bring to our alliance. Marcus looked around at his exhausted but triumphant team. Dr. Chen was already working on improvements to their weapon systems. Tom Bradley was calculating how quickly they could establish similar defenses on other worlds. Maria Santos was coordinating with Earth to send additional personnel and resources. Archon Vextar, Marcus replied, "Humanity accepts your request. But we do this as equals, not as junior members seeking approval. The galaxy is about to learn what happens when humans fight for something worth protecting." The Void Harbingers would return with adapted strategies and reinforced fleets. But when they did, they would face not just the advanced civilizations of the Stellar Dominion, but the stubborn, creative, never-surrender spirit of humanity. The war for the galaxy had begun, and Earth's children were ready to prove once and for all that being underestimated was humanity's greatest advantage. In the months that followed, human military advisors and engineers spread throughout Dominion space, bringing with them tactics and technologies that transformed the nature of galactic warfare. The species that had once dismissed them as soft-flesh primitives now sought their counsel eagerly. The Void Harbingers had awakened to find a galaxy changed by the presence of a species that refused to accept that any problem was unsolvable, any enemy unbeatable, or any cause not worth fighting for. Humanity had finally found its place among the stars, not as supplicants seeking acceptance, but as defenders ready to stand against the darkness that threatened all life in the galaxy.